Hey everybody, how's it going? Andrew here from IronmanHacks, and I'm super excited to speak to Martin Turner, who's a producer, the producer for the PTO, so the broadcast. So he's basically in charge of all the broadcasting, and we know PTO broadcasting has taken things to a new level. But I wonder how they did it, and what their future is, and what their plans are. So maybe Martin, can you give us a little bit of insight into how you guys managed to pull off such a awesome broadcast, I suspect starting with the Collins Cup?
When I got involved with the PTO, which is at the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, I just given up a consultation with Formula One, where I'd been for 2 years following my 30 odd years at Sky and having created the F1 channel in 2011. And I met up with Sam and he told me about this project for triathlon. Now, I knew nothing about triathlon. I knew about the Brownlee brothers. I knew about triathlon in the Olympic Games, but I knew very little about it. Sam explained to me what they were trying to do with the Professional Triathletes Organization. And it really rung a bell with me because I'd had to do a variety of things in my sporting career with Sky Sports, which involved taking new sports and creating formats and trying to make them more popular. So it immediately rang a bell. So I said I wanted to help. I didn't know what was happening with the Formula One season, which of course then went into lockdown in 2020. But I committed to working with Sam and helping him with the project. So we prepared for the Collins Cup. And it was interesting because Sam said to me, well, we've still got 6, 7, 8 months to go. In fact, I think we were originally planning for May. And he said, so it's plenty of time. I said, well, in television, when you're preparing an event of this magnitude, we'd normally know a year and a half out about when it was going to happen. And then we'd start planning and making sure we could get the right people and the right facilities. So, in fact, it was a really short order. So, what happened with the pandemic, of course, was it then got postponed till 2021. So, we prepared for the event in 2020, which would have been a real push, but we would have been able to do it. But luckily, it acted as a real hurry up for us, and we got it planned, and it was obviously a massive broadcast. It's a massive broadcast where you put 12 motorbikes on a course, and you can go to any one of 12 matches, effectively 12 3-athlete matches at any one time. That's a massive challenge. To give you some context, if you were looking at the Tour de France, which looks like an amazingly large production, which it is, they're probably only dealing with 3 helicopters at one time, dealing with the breakaway, the peloton, and maybe someone in the background. So they're dealing with essentially three groups of cyclists. Now, they're up for 6 hours sometimes, so they're bringing up helicopters and taking them down and circling with a plane to get the signals back from the bikes and everything. So it's a massive operation. I don't seek to diminish it at all. But we, over a smaller footprint, but still a large footprint, still a sort of 50K, 75K footprint, getting signals back from 12 matches involving 3 bikes on each. And I mentioned the bikes in particular because the bikes is where the footprint is the biggest, but we're also dealing with the swim and the run. So it was an enormously complex operation to say we've got 12 motos out on the bike and 12 motos out on the run. And we need to be able to go to any one of these at any one time. So it was at first, most importantly, it was an incredible technical challenge. And that's where you start with a TV broadcast. How much money have I got? How many cameras have I got? How many cameras do I need? What's the challenge here? The challenge was that we would have a Ryder Cup style event, that we would have to go to any of the battles, and we wouldn't know which battles were important until they actually happened. We would go to any one of these battles at any one time, and technically we'd have to be able to do that. Now, if you think about a comparison to golf, golf is quite a good comparison because you've got 18 holes of golf in the Ryder Cup, you've got 12 matches, but they happen on a big enough footprint, but it's all cabled. So every camera, more or less, apart from some of the handhelds, every camera has a cable. So whether it's up a cherry picker or it's a low down camera behind a tee or it's on a green, there's a cable to every one of those cameras. So there's no issue with losing signal. You're not relying on RF signals or 4G network or anything like that. Whereas we in the triathlon world, relying on in virtually every element, apart from a few static places like the finish, the start, transition, in every other place on the footprint, on the track, on the course, we're relying on 4G signals or RF signals, radio frequency signals. Now, what we had to do with the Collins Cup was we had to take it from top to bottom. From top, we had to put a plane in the air, and the plane would pick up the signals from the bikes. And because the footprint was so large, not even the plane circling around could reach every part of the course. So the plane would have certain areas it would go to, and it would move around and circle in order to send the pictures back to the truck. So it gives you an idea of the complexity and size of the broadcast. So then you have to say, okay, how much is that going to cost? And it costs a lot. When I came up with the broadcast vision or plan with Sam, it was, a huge figure. Now, when we do PTO tour events, we don't have 12 matches, but we still have sometimes on the same day, we have 2 races. So having 2 races and trying to cover them like we did in Ibiza, for example, is very difficult technically, but it's also very difficult editorially because you get involved in a story and you're trying to tell one story. And then you say, right, the women are starting an hour and a half after the men. We've got to go back and start getting involved in their story. It's not ideal. So you've got to...
If Christian Blumenfeld falls to the very back in the bike, that's dramatically important. And you guys would have to have that, knowledge and kind of, you'd have to know to move to him because it's a major shift in the race, right? So you have to learn the sport and learn the athletes and learn the dynamics, I think, right?
Editorially, yes, you're dead right. You need to know what's going on. So we have a bunch of experts that help us in the truck try and work out what's happening. So prior to the event, and we've obviously got quite a lot of knowledge about the athletes, and we have some outstanding athletes. That doesn't mean that we know exactly what's going to happen. I mean, give for example in Ibiza when Max Newman came in and spoiled the party. We had the 3 greatest triathletes, arguably of all time, racing together, and Max Newman came in and decided he was going to win the race. Now, there's lots of theories about how Christian might have won the race if this had happened and that had happened. But the bottom line is Max Newman won the race. So we had to be prepared for. We thought we knew the shape of the race. Obviously, Jan and Alistair are very fast swimmers and tend to be front runners. So we thought that the first battle to be decided would be between them 2, who would come out on top, and Christian, who is a slower swimmer, would come through the pack. So I tend to set up for these PTO tour races with 3 bikes. 1 with the leader. You've always got to be with the leader. It's like Formula 1. You can't not be with the leader because if the leader falls over, has a mechanical, does anything, and you just happen to pull back because you're looking at 2nd place or 3rd place, you've always got to be on the leader. So you've got a bike with the leader all the time. Then you've got a bike normally with the principal chasers, the ones who are closest or fairly close. And then you pick where the challenge is coming from in the slow swimmers. So In the men's, Christian actually was very fast and swam much faster than we thought he was going to swim in Singapore, which put him in a great position for the race. But if you take a women's race like Annie Haug's race in Ibiza, she is a very slow swimmer. So she comes from right at the back. So we had to be sure that we could cover her. Now, she caught us out a bit because she was so fast. She was so far back. It didn't seem possible that she could come through. Then she ran a race where she was faster than half of the men. Her run time was faster than half the men. Now, we knew that come the next time she was racing, so we were very well prepared. So I tend to prepare editorially back, middle, so that we can see what's happening in any one of those positions. That's a way of hopefully telling the story and evolving with the story, because if someone comes through you're not expecting, they should come through from one of those three positions, and you can make a decision to go with them and start telling their story. Interesting enough, Singapore was a magic. I mean, there was so much interesting stuff happening there. It also showed us where we had the bridge and we had the hill, how much excitement that can bring, because all of a sudden, from traveling at 55k, they're traveling at 10k. They look like human beings, and also you've got time to see who's struggling, because it can be very difficult to contrast and compare people's styles, speeds, because they're all going so fast, and they've got to obey the 20-meter drafting rule. So unless you've got someone overtaking someone, they're pacing at the same pace. So you can't necessarily know how they're feeling, when they're going to break, when they're going to break down. So that's an extra challenge we have in the middle distance that they don't have in the Olympics, which are drafting races where there's far more action all at the same time. So that's a basic philosophy of editorially how you approach a race. We obviously spend a lot of time with the experts saying who's performing well, how did they perform last time, where are they in their cycle in terms of their preparation. They could be preparing for another race, and that will change next year, because next year and then the following year, we expect our PTO Tour athletes to be very much focusing on our races, because it's going to be the tour that changes everything, from the money, the places. And there will still be some events like the Olympic Games, like Kona, of course, which will interest some athletes who will still have desires on the long distance. But in general, we expect 20 committed female and male athletes to be very much focusing how they can win the most amount of races and get the most amount of success at our distance.
Yep.
So I think what we will see,
like a full season narrative, like F1, where you expect them to be along for the ride to the full thing, and everybody's keeping track of who's doing what, and obviously the prize money is there, and so that creates a whole season that both spectators and athletes can look forward to, I guess.
Yeah, and they'll have to concentrate very hard, because as we've seen, there are lots of great athletes. Even the great athletes come under pressure. Yeah, so the season will be completely different to the ones we've seen so far. People will be concentrated on our events. Their training and their preparation will be according to the events that they have to concentrate on. There'll be far more specifics. It'll be far more. It won't necessarily be far more predictable, but their regimes and the way they train will, in order to perform to the max, will have to be concentrated around the PTO Tour. No question about that. If you're not concentrated at our distance, you're not going to be successful. So yeah. The only person we've seen who slightly kicks against the trend is Christian Blumenfeld.
Christian doesn't care. He can do all distances all at once and still win at all of them, but he's only one guy, right?
Yeah, but I also think, And you think back to Sam Laidlaw's success in Nice. I think he's going to realize that as superhuman as he is, he's still going to have to not take it more seriously, because he takes it incredibly seriously. But I think for him to have the sort of success he wants to have, and he clearly is desperate to have it on the PTO Tour. That's why he put himself through hell to, Milwaukee, then the Paris test event, then 48 hours later in Singapore. He clearly, and he's announced publicly how successfully he wants to be on the PTO Tour. He wants to dominate it. At the end of the season, he wants to be the PTO Tour champion. I have no doubt whatsoever.